World War II, a time when the world was split in two, was steeped in political tension and military aggression. As the globe was divided into warring factions, the Allies and the Axis, the stakes were never higher. During this era, two forces were particularly aggressive: Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. Nazi Germany's expansionist policies were unrelenting. Their audacious invasion of Poland, a sovereign nation, was a clear declaration of their intent. Meanwhile, Imperial Japan was not far behind in its pursuit of dominance. The infamous attack on Pearl Harbor was a stark demonstration of their military might and their willingness to challenge the Allied forces. This was a time of intense political and economic turbulence. The world was caught in a whirlwind of conflict, a dance of power that would have far-reaching consequences. As the war raged on, two cities in Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, were on the brink of experiencing a fate unlike any other. The world was at war, and amidst this chaos, two cities in Japan were about to face a fate like no other. In the midst of World War II, a new weapon of unprecedented destruction was being developed. This was a venture that would forever alter the course of warfare and human history: the Manhattan Project. Spearheaded by the United States, with the help of the United Kingdom and Canada, this top-secret project aimed at producing the world's first atomic bomb. The Manhattan Project was a response to fears that Nazi Germany was developing its own nuclear weaponry. It involved some of the era's brightest scientific minds, including Robert Oppenheimer, often called the father of the atomic bomb. Over the course of several years, they worked tirelessly to unlock the destructive potential of atomic energy. Meanwhile, the war was raging on, and the Allied forces were eager for a swift resolution. Upon assuming the presidency in April 1945, Harry S. Truman was briefed about this secret project. Truman faced a monumental decision: to use or not to use this catastrophic weapon. The hope was that such a show of force would bring about a rapid end to the war. After much deliberation and consultation with his advisors, Truman decided to drop the atomic bomb on Japan. The targets were the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The aim was to avoid an invasion of Japan, which could result in a staggering number of casualties on both sides. The decision was made, and on August 6 and 9, 1945, the world witnessed the devastating power of nuclear weapons for the first time. The bombs fell, and in an instant the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were reduced to rubble. Silence hung heavily over the land. The once bustling cities now silent, save for the eerie crackle of fires and the distant cries of survivors. The immediate aftermath of the bombings was a scene of utter devastation. Buildings, roads, bridges, all were annihilated, leaving behind a desolate landscape of destruction. But the physical damage was only the beginning. The real horror lay in the immense loss of life. Tens of thousands perished in the initial blasts, and in the days and weeks that followed, many more succumbed to their injuries and the effects of radiation. Men, women, children, the elderly, no one was spared. Those who survived were left with deep physical and emotional scars, their lives forever marked by the horrors they had witnessed. And then there was the silent, invisible enemy: radiation. The bombs had unleashed a deadly cocktail of radioactive isotopes which contaminated the air, the soil, and the water. The survivors, known as the Hibakusha, faced a future of uncertainty and fear. They suffered from an array of health problems, from cancer and birth defects to chronic illnesses, the consequences of their exposure to radiation. Yet amidst the rubble and the ruin, a new dawn was breaking. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki marked the end of World War II. On August 15, 1945, less than a week after the bombing of Nagasaki, Japan announced its surrender. The war was over, but the world was forever changed. The bombings sparked a global outcry. Nations around the world recoiled in horror at the unprecedented destruction, and the ethical implications of the bombings were hotly debated. The bombings had exposed the terrifying potential of nuclear weapons, and there was a growing consensus that such weapons should never be used again. In response to this global sentiment, the international community took action. The United Nations was established, and one of its first tasks was to create international laws regarding the use of nuclear weapons. The Geneva Conventions were expanded to include protections against the use of nuclear weapons, and treaties were signed banning the testing, production, and deployment of such weapons. Hiroshima and Nagasaki stand as stark reminders of the devastating power of nuclear weapons, and the lessons learned from these events continue to shape our world today. They remind us of the horrors of war, the value of peace, and the importance of diplomacy and international cooperation. They serve as a warning, a call to action, and a beacon of hope, reminding us that even in the darkest moments, there is always a path towards light.